Hello, Blue Valley. This is Mr. Hume, librarian at Blue Valley Middle School, with another First Chapter Friday for you. And we all know what holiday is just around the corner, right? Valentine's Day. So I picked something with a little bit of a romantic theme. I also picked something that's kind of an oldie but a goodie, and that is a book called Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. This book's almost 20 years old, but it's still a lot of people's favorite YA book. Also, another reason I picked it is recently a movie came out about it, but as we all know, the books are always a lot better than the movie. But if you saw the movie and liked it, maybe that would inspire you to pick up the book. So I'm going to read these chapters are extremely short, so I'm actually going to read the preface and a first couple chapters for you. So this is Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. Porcupine Necktie. When I was little, my Uncle Pete had a necktie with a porcupine painted on it. I thought that necktie was just about the neatest thing in the world. Uncle Pete would stand patiently for me while I ran my fingers over the silky surface, half expecting to be stuck by one of the quills. Once he let me wear it. I kept looking for one of my own, but I could never find one. I was 12 when we moved from Pennsylvania to Arizona. When Uncle Pete came to say goodbye, he was wearing the tie. I thought he did so to give me one last look at it, and I was grateful. But then, with a dramatic flourish, he whipped off the tie and draped it around my neck. "It's yours," he said, "going away present." I loved that porcupine tie so much that I decided to start a collection. 2 years after we settled in Arizona, the number of ties in my collection was still one. Where do you find a porcupine necktie in Micah, Arizona? Or anywhere else for that matter? On my 14th birthday, I read about myself in the local newspaper. The family section ran a regular feature about kids on their birthdays, and my mother had called in some info. The last sentence read, "As a hobby, Leo Borlock collects porcupine neckties." Several days later, coming home from school, I found a plastic bag on our front step. Inside was a gift-wrapped package tied with a yellow ribbon. The tag said, "Happy Birthday." I opened the package. It was a porcupine necktie. 2 porcupines were tossing darts with their quills, while a third was picking its teeth. I inspected the box, the tag, the paper. Nowhere could I find the giver's name. I asked my parents. I asked my friends. I called my Uncle Pete. Everybody denied knowing anything about it. At the time, I simply considered the episode a mystery. It did not occur to me that I was being watched. We were all being watched. Okay, that's the end of the preface, chapter 1. "Did you see her?" That was the first thing Kevin said to me on my first day of school, 11th grade. We were waiting for the bell to ring. "See who?" I asked. I said, "Ha!" He craned his neck, scanning the mob. He had witnessed something remarkable. It showed on his face. He grinned, still scanning. "You'll know." There were hundreds of us milling about, calling names, pointing to summertime faces we hadn't seen since June. Our interest in each other was never keener than during the first 15 minutes of the first bell of the first day. I punched his arm. "Who?" The bell rang. We poured inside. I heard it again in homeroom, a whispered voice behind me as we said the Pledge of Allegiance. "You see her?" I heard it in the hallways. I heard it in English and geometry. "Did you see her?" Who could it be? A new student, a spectacular blonde from California, or from back east, where many of us came from, or from those summer makeovers, someone who leaves in June looking like a little girl and returns in September as a full-bodied woman, a 10-week miracle. And then in earth sciences, I heard a name, Stargirl. I turned to the senior slouching behind me. "Stargirl," I said. "What kind of name is that?" "That's it, Stargirl Caraway." She said it in homeroom. "Stargirl?" "Yeah." And then I saw her at lunch. She wore an off-white dress so long it covered her knees. It had ruffles around the neck and cuffs and looked like it had been one of her great-grandmother's wedding gowns. Her hair was the color of sand. It fell to her shoulders. Something was strapped across her back. But it wasn't a book bag. At first I thought it was a miniature guitar. Then I found out it was a ukulele. She did not carry a lunch tray. She did not carry a large canvas bag with a life-size sunflower painted on it. The lunchroom was dead silent as she walked by. She stopped at an empty table, laid down her bag, slung the instrument strap over her chair, and sat down. She pulled a sandwich from the bag and started to eat. Half the lunchroom kept staring, half started buzzing. Kevin was grinning. "What did I tell you?" I nodded. "She's in 10th grade, I'm sorry," he said. "I hear she's been homeschooled till now." "Maybe that explains it," I said. Her back was to us, so I couldn't see her face. No one sat with her, but at the tables next to hers, kids were cramming to a seat. She didn't seem to notice. She seemed marooned in a sea of staring, buzzing faces. Kevin was grinning again. "You think what I'm thinking," he said. I grinned back. I nodded. Hot Seat. Hot Seat was our in-school TV show. We had started it the year before. I was a producer-director. Kevin was on-camera host. Each month he interviewed a student. So far, most of them had been honor student types, athletes, model citizens, noteworthy in the usual ways, but not especially interesting. Suddenly, Kevin's eyes boggled. The girl was picking up her ukulele, and now she was strumming it, and now she was singing. Strumming away, bobbing her head and shoulders, singing, "I'm looking over a four-leaf clover that I've overlooked before." Stone silence all around. Then came the sound of a single person clapping. I looked. It was the lunch line cashier. And now the girl was standing, slinging her bag over one shoulder and marching along the tables, strumming and singing and strutting and twirling. Head swung, eyes followed her, her mouths hung open, disbelief. When she came by our table, I got my first good look at her face. She wasn't gorgeous, wasn't ugly. A sprinkle of freckles across the bridge of her nose. Mostly she looked like 100 other girls in school, except for two things. She wore no makeup, and her eyes were the biggest I'd ever seen, like deer's eyes caught in headlights. She twirled as she went past, her flaring skirt brushing my pant leg, and then she marched out of the lunchroom. From among the tables came 3 lone claps. Someone whistled. Someone yelped. Kevin and I gawked at each other. Kevin held up his hands and framed a marquee in the air. Hot Seat, coming attraction, Stargirl. I slapped the table. Yes! We slammed hands. Chapter 2. When we got to school the next day, Hillary Kimball was holding court at the door. "She's not real," Hillary said. She was sneering. "She's an actress. It's a scam." Someone called out, "Who's scamming us?" "The administration, the principal. Who else? Who cares?" Hillary wagged her head at the absurdity of the question. A hand flashed in the air. "Why?" "School spirit," she spat back. "You think this place was too dead last year?" They think this place was too dead last year. They think if they plant some nutcase in with the students, like they plant narcs in schools, someone else shouted. Hillary glared at the speaker, then continued, "Some nutcase who stirs things up, then maybe all the little students will go to a game once in a while or join a club. Instead of making out in the library," chimed another voice, and everybody laughed and the bell rang and we went in. Hillary Kimball's theory spread throughout the school and was widely accepted. "You think Hillary's right?" Kevin asked me. "Stargirl's a plant?" I snickered. "Listen to yourself." He spread his arms. "What?" "This is Micah area high schools," I reminded him. "It's not a CIA operation." "Maybe not," he said, "but I hope Hillary's right." "Why would you hope that? If she's not a real student, we can't have her on Hot Seat." Kevin wagged his head and grinned. "As usual, Mr. Director, you fail to see the whole picture. We could use the show to expose her. Can't you see it? How did the marquee thing he did the marquee thing with his hands. Hot Seat uncovers faculty hoax." I stared at him. "You want her to be a fake, don't you?" He grinned ear to ear. "Absolutely. Our ratings will go sky high." I had to admit, the more I saw of her, the easier it was to believe she was a plant, a joke, anything but real. On that second day, she wore bright red baggy shorts with a bib and shoulder straps, overall shorts. Her sandy hair was pulled back into twin-plaited pigtails, each tied with a bright red ribbon. A rouge smudge applied to each cheek, and she had even dabbed some oversized freckles on her face. She looked like Heidi or Bo Peep. At lunch, she was alone again at her table. As before, when she finished eating, she took up her ukulele, but this time she didn't play. She got up and started walking among the tables. She stared at us. She stared at one face, then another and another. The kind of bold, "I'm looking at you" stare that you almost never get from people, especially strangers. She appeared to be looking for someone, and the whole lunchroom had become very uncomfortable. As she approached our table, I thought, what if she's looking for me? The thought terrified me, so I turned from her. I looked at Kevin. I watched him grin goofily up at her. He wiggled his fingers at her and whispered, "Hi, Stargirl." I didn't hear an answer, but I was intensely aware of her passing behind my chair. She stopped 2 tables away. She was smiling at a pudding-bodied senior named Alan Furco. The lunchroom was dead silent. She started strumming the uke and singing. It was "Happy Birthday." When she came to his name, she didn't sing just his first name, but his full name. "Happy birthday, dear Alan Furco." Alan Furco's face turned red as Bo Peep's pigtail ribbons. There was a flurry of whistles and hoots, more for Alan Furco's sake, I think, than hers. As Stargirl marched out, I could see Hillary Kimball across the lunchroom rising from her seat, pointing, saying something I could not hear. "I'll tell you one thing," Kevin said as we joined the mob in the hallways. "She better be fake." I asked him what he meant. "I mean, if she's real, she's in big trouble. How do you think somebody who's really like that going to last? How long do you think someone who's really like that's going to last around here?" Good question. Mike Area High School, MAHS, was not exactly a hotbed of nonconformity. There were individual variants here and there, of course, but within pretty narrow limits. We all wore the same clothes, talked the same way, ate the same food, listened to the same music. Even our dorks and nerds had a MAHS stamp on them. If we happened to somehow distinguish ourselves, we quickly snapped back into place like rubber bands. Kevin was right. It was unthinkable that Stargirl could survive, or at least survive unchanged among us. But it was also clear that Hillary Kimball was at least half right. This person calling herself Stargirl may or may not have been a faculty plant for school spirit, but whatever she was not real. She couldn't be. Several times in those early weeks of September, she showed up in something outrageous. A 1920s flapper dress, an Indian buckskin, a kimono. One day she wore a denim miniskirt with green stockings, and crawling up one leg was a parade of enamel ladybugs and butterfly pins. Normal? For her were long, floor-brushing pioneer dresses and skirts. Every day in the lunchroom, she serenaded somebody new with happy birthday. I was glad my birthday was in the summer. In the hallway, she said hello to perfect strangers. The seniors couldn't believe it. They had never seen a 10th grader so bold. In class, she was always flapping her hand in the air, asking questions, though the question often had nothing to do with the subject. One day, she asked a question about trolls in U.S. history class. She made up a song about isosceles triangles. She sang it to her plane geometry class. It was called Three Sides Have I, but Only Two Are Equal. She joined the cross-country team. Our home meets were held in the Micah County Club golf course. Red flags showed the runners the way to go. In her first meet, out in the middle of the course, she turned left when everyone else turned right. They waited for her at the finish line. She never showed up. She was dismissed from the team. One day, a girl screamed in the hallways. She had seen a tiny brown face pop up on Stargirl's sunflower canvas bag. It was her pet rat. It rode to school in her bag every day. One morning, we had a rare rainfall. It came during our gym class. The teacher told everyone to come in. On the way to the next class, they looked out the windows. Stargirl was still outside, in the rain, dancing. We wanted to define her, to wrap her up as we did each other, but we could not seem to get past the weird or strange or goofy. Her ways knocked us off balance. A single word seemed to hover over the cloudless sky of the school. Huh? Everything she did seemed to echo Hillary Kimball. She's not real. She's not real. And each night in bed, I thought of her as the moon came through my window. I could have lowered my shade to make it darker and easier to sleep, but I never did. In that moonlit hour, I acquired a sense of otherness of things. I liked the feeling of the moonlight that the moonlight gave me, as if it wasn't the opposite of day, but its underside, its private side, when the fabulous purred out of my snow-white sheet like some dark cat coming on from the desert. It was during one of these night moon times that it came to me that Hillary Kimball was wrong. Stargirl was real. Okay, so that's the first couple chapters, short chapters from a book, like I say, an oldie but a goodie, and also kind of a romantic novel called Stargirl from Jerry Spinelli. So look for it in your local library, and I hope you enjoy reading the rest of it. Thank you very much.